sana.
Dialogosas, Walonju, Jorosho, George, Sorge H's, a shirt of fishes. And okay, let's unpack this. I want you to imagine something for a second. Think about, your family's absolute favorite kind of loud, slightly chaotic holiday tradition.
Right, like the one everyone just knows by heart.
Exactly. The one that just happens organically in your backyard or your living room. Now imagine waking up tomorrow to find out that to celebrate that tradition literally on your own property, you suddenly need to apply for a formal government permit.
Oh, and you have to adhere to a very strict historical dress code.
Yes, and pay a $250 fee just to participate.
I mean, that fundamentally alters the DNA of the event. You're taking something totally organic and just making it bureaucratic.
And that is the exact tension we are exploring in today's deep dive. Oh, and for those of you who might not speak Russian, a very warm welcome to you as well.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah. So our mission today is to basically transport you to the vibrant, rhythmic landscape of Burundi. We're looking at what happens when an ancient, deeply joyful cultural tradition suddenly collides with, well, the modern complexities of global recognition and strict government regulation.
And we are pulling from two very contrasting sources to navigate this today. First, we have an enthusiastic, brightly colored cultural events calendar from M Travel and Tours Burundi.
You super upbeat.
Right. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have this nuanced, on-the-ground journalistic report from Africa News, which details the actual current realities of preserving Burundian drumming.
Yeah, and if you were looking at this M Travel brochure right now, I mean, you'd probably be packing your bags immediately.
Oh, absolutely.
They describe Burundi as this land where the spirit of community is just constantly alive. They highlight the Umuganuro Festival, which happens around February, and they call it Burundi's oldest traditional festival.
Yeah, the calendar presents it mostly as a celebration of the first harvest, but if we dig into the mechanics of what the Umuganuro actually was historically, I mean, it was far more than just a seasonal farmer's market.
Wait, how so?
Well, in an agrarian society, the first harvest is basically the most vulnerable time of the year. So historically, this massive event was directed by Burundian kings through very specific rituals.
Okay.
The dancing and the drumming weren't just entertainment. They were the mechanism by which the community believed they secured ancestral blessings, to guarantee agricultural abundance for the entire kingdom.
Wow, so the stakes were incredibly high. And the travel agency doesn't stop there. They list the Intor dance ceremonies in rural areas like Moramvia, Kayonza, and Ngozi, which celebrate bravery and royal lineage.
Yeah, there's just so much variety.
Yeah, and then you see these village harvest festivals scattered all throughout the year. You've got some between March and June, others from September to November, and these are described as moments where hill communities just come together to celebrate harvests of sorghum, maize, beans, and bananas.
And you know what stands out in all that marketing material? It's the heavy emphasis on accessibility and spontaneity.
Exactly. The brochure practically guarantees that as a visitor, you can just step into this raw, unscheduled, and completely authentic music and dance.
Like it's just happening everywhere.
Right. They make it sound like you could be walking down a dirt road in Ngozi and suddenly find yourself swept up in an impromptu village celebration. It's a very romantic image.
It is romantic, yeah. But that joy is rooted in something very real. Because if we look at the entire calendar of celebrations, from those rural harvest festivals to Independence Day on July 1st, all the way to New Year's Eve in the capital city of Bujumbura, there's a single unifying element.
Drum.
Exactly. There is a specific acoustic signature that defines Burundian culture across all these events, and that's the traditional drum.
The ingoma, as it's known locally. And here is where the story kind of shifts for me. Because we move from modern tourist appeal to something ancient and, honestly, deeply sacred. This tradition dates back to the 17th century when Burundi was a monarchy.
And the relationship between the Burundian monarchy and the drum was profoundly literal. When a new king took power, the historical phrasing wasn't that he was crowned, or even that he took the throne.
Right.
The concept was actually that the king ascended the drum.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I need to push back on that phrasing a bit. When they say he ascended the drum, was the drum just like a symbolic mascot?
What do you mean?
Like royal scepter or a crown that just gets passed down? Or did it actually wield political weight in the minds of the people?
If we connect to the bigger picture, you have to think of it less like a mascot and more like a living constitution.
Oh, wow. A living constitution.
Yeah. In that era, the drum was the literal source of the king's power. It was the physical manifestation of eternal rule. The king was temporary, but the drum was permanent. These instruments were so highly revered that they were actually given individual names.
Like people. I mean, you don't name a generic piece of equipment, you name something that has a spirit.
Exactly. And while many historical drums have vanished over the centuries, the two most hallowed surviving drums are named Rusitime and Muramirwa. And they aren't kept in a museum display case or some generic storage closet.
Where are they?
They are enshrined in a traditional straw hut in Gishora. Gishora is essentially the heartland, like the absolute sanctuary of this royal tradition.
And the creation of these instruments is steeped in that same reverence. The historical rules dictated that these sacred drums could only be carved from the massive trunks of a very specific tree. It's called the Muvugangoma, which translates to the tree that makes the drum talk.
It's such a powerful name, and the choice of that specific tree isn't just poetic. It has to do with the physical properties of the wood itself.
Like the acoustics.
Yeah, its density, how it resonates, how it holds the tension of the animal skin stretched across it. The resonance of the Muvugangoma wood is what gives the Burundian drum its distinct, booming acoustic profile. It literally roots the art form right into the physical soil of the country.
And that physical connection translates directly into how they perform it, right? Because if you haven't seen a video of a traditional Burundian drumming troupe, you absolutely need to look it up.
Oh, it's incredible.
It really is. The performers each have a wooden stick in hand, and they are executing these prodigious leaps into the air. They do pirouettes, all while maintaining this incredibly complex, synchronized rhythm.
And they're interacting with the crowd, too.
Yeah. Giving winks to the spectators, smiling. It requires immense athletic stamina.
It definitely does. And the African News Report grounds this with a really fantastic interview.
Yeah.
I spoke with Oscar Mishimirimana, who is a 43-year-old troop leader. The reporter describes him as just dripping with sweat after a performance in Gishora. And Oscar tells them, "We beat the drum because it's our life, because it's in our blood." He actually makes a point to note that it wasn't just his father who beat the drum, but all of his great-grandparents.
It's an unbroken, living lineage.
Which is exactly what creates this paradox. Because this tradition is so intensely local, so organic, and honestly so visually spectacular, it became the absolute jewel of Burundi's culture.
And when a cultural practice shines that brightly, the international community inevitably takes notice.
Right. And that global spotlight is exactly what introduced a whole new layer of friction.
So let's look at 2014, because that seems to be the major turning point in the source material. In 2014, UNESCO officially recognizes the cultural value of this tradition. They inscribed the ritual dance of the royal drum onto their list of intangible world heritage.
And normally, global recognition from an organization like UNESCO is viewed as the ultimate validation for a local culture.
Right, but I'm kind of confused by the fallout here. I always thought getting a UNESCO World Heritage badge was just a pure win. Like, it means funding, it means protection. How does global recognition lead to that $250 backyard permit we talked about at the start of the deep dive?
Well, we have to look at the mechanism of institutionalization. When a practice gets a UNESCO label, it transitions in the eyes of the global community from being this local community practice to a guarded global asset. Yeah. UNESCO requires the host country to prove they're actively managing and safeguarding that asset.
So the government feels all this pressure to step in and codify something that was previously just passed down naturally.
Exactly. The state has to show a framework. They have to map it, define it, and protect it from degradation. So following that UNESCO listing in 2017, the Burundian government enforced strict new rules on all drumming performers. The stated goal was to protect the tradition from losing its meaning or being performed incorrectly.
But the rules they implemented completely changed the landscape of how the drum is practiced on a day-to-day basis. Because suddenly, drumming troops were required to formally register with state authorities.
Yeah, and they reimposed a long-forgotten edict that banned women from playing the drums, aiming for this idea of historical purity.
Which is a huge shift.
It is. They also mandated very strict dress codes for all performers, literally dictating exactly what colors and fabrics could be worn during a performance.
It's a lot like taking a wild animal out of its natural habitat and placing it in a zoo. Like, yes, it is heavily protected from poachers, its diet is totally regulated, and its survival is guaranteed on paper, but it's no longer wild.
That's a great way to put it.
How does a tradition go from being, as Oscar said, in our blood, spontaneous and familial, to something that requires filling out paperwork in a government office?
It just highlights that classic tension between a living culture and a state-managed monument. The government is attempting to freeze the tradition in a very specific, idealized version of the past.
And the real-world, on-the-ground consequences of this shift are just staggering. This is where the travel agency's promise of spontaneous community dances crashes violently into modern bureaucracy.
Right.
Under these 2017 rules, if a family in Burundi wants to hire drummers for a private celebration, let's say a local wedding, they cannot just ask the neighborhood troupe to come play. They have to apply to the government for a special permit.
And the cost of that permit is $250.
Which we really need to put into strict economic context here. According to the sources, Burundi is the poorest country in the world in terms of GDP per capita. So a $250 fee is not just a mild administrative hurdle.
No, that at all.
For the vast majority of citizens, it is a staggering, completely prohibitive amount of money.
But setting the fee that high, the regulation effectively removes the drum from the everyday celebrations of average citizens.
Yeah.
The source material actually shares a very telling anecdote about how strictly these new rules are enforced. Just this past February, a troupe of drummers was hired to play at a festival. But they performed wearing black suits.
Which obviously violated the newly mandated traditional dress code.
Right. And because they were in suits and not the regulation attire, authorities literally stopped the entire festival. The performance was shut down immediately.
Unbelievable.
Furthermore, that specific drumming troupe was suspended from playing at all for 6 months.
Suspended for 6 months over a clothing choice. I mean, that is an incredibly harsh penalty for musicians who are just trying to earn a living. The African news piece actually spoke with a young man navigating this reality, right?
Yeah, Aleks.tourist.
Right, Aleks. He's a 27-year-old engineer who is also a passionate drummer. And he practices twice a week in this open-air amphitheater in the capital. He explained that because of these strict rules and the crazy permit costs, the demand for drummers has just plummeted.
Aleks noted a massive impact on their livelihood. Because the average Burundian family can no longer afford that $250 permit, troops like his are forced into a very narrow corner. They almost exclusively play for government-sanctioned events or, for the very wealthy elite and international tourists who can actually afford the fee.
Which is a tough pill to swallow for the tourist who read that M-Travel calendar. You book a trip expecting to step into real Burundian village life, but the reality is that the musicians you see might face a 6-month suspension if they play spontaneously in the wrong outfit. So what does this all mean?
Well, it's important to examine the underlying philosophies of both sides here, because the sources present two very distinct perspectives on what preservation actually means in this context.
Right, they really do.
On the government side, you have figures like Amable Nkunzumwami, an advisor to the culture minister. His argument is deeply rooted in institutional duty.
Yeah, from his perspective, once UNESCO declared it a World Heritage item, the government became the legal custodian of that heritage. So, regulating the practice, standardizing the dress code, monitoring who performs it, that's their way of ensuring the tradition isn't diluted, commercialized, or disrespected.
That is the institutional view, exactly. But on the other side, you have voices from the community and academia analyzing the socioeconomic impact. The sources quote Julian Nimubona, who is a professor of political science at the University of Burundi.
And what does he say?
He observes these regulations, the formal registrations, the $250 permits, and he concludes that it's less about cultural protection and much more about the government finding a way to monetize the UNESCO status.
He actually told reporters it took away something that was ours. And that is such a profound statement. It captures the exact feeling of loss when a tradition that used to just belong to the community, something that lived in their backyards and their daily routines, is suddenly locked behind a paywall.
It articulates the central conflict of the deep dive perfectly. Is the drum primarily a symbol of the state, meant to be polished and displayed under strict conditions? Or is it the voice of the people, meant to be loud, accessible, and constantly evolving?
Right.
When a state claims ownership of a cultural practice to protect it, they're essentially taking the authority to decide when and how that culture is allowed to speak.
We've covered a lot of ground today. We started with the inviting, joyous promises of the travel brochure, looking at a culture deeply connected to rhythm and seasonal harvest festivals.
Yeah, we did.
And we traced that rhythm all the way back to the 17th century, where kings ascended the drum, and we visited the sacred straw huts of Gishora to understand the absolute reverence for the Amuvagongo tree.
And then we explored the paradox of global recognition. We looked at how a UNESCO listing inadvertently triggered this wave of strict government controls, resulting in hefty permit fees and bureaucratic hurdles that, ironically, stifled the very spontaneity that made the drumming tradition so vibrant in the first place.
It really makes you evaluate the whole concept of preservation. I mean, think about the local customs, the quirky neighborhood celebrations, or the family traditions in your own life. What would happen if they were suddenly deemed World Heritage?
It's a crazy thought.
What would happen if the things that bring your community together organically were placed under glass by a global organization and just handed over to regulators to manage?
And it leaves us with a critical question to ponder long after you finish listening today. If we freeze an ancient tradition in time, meticulously enforcing strict rules and historical dress codes to protect its past, does it slowly ossify into a static museum exhibit? Or can it somehow still survive as the living, unpredictable, and evolving heartbeat of the people who created it?
Wolf, Mr. Majak, tramling electa posse distros that the covillers bespoken it.
It gets a lost to the Euro take here on my NAs today.